The void was silent. Not peaceful, never peaceful, but silent in that cold, merciless way deep space often was. It stretched endlessly beyond the rusted asteroid belt, lit only by the scattered bones of long-dead stars. Amid the debris drifted a shape, slick and organic, half-grown, half-built. The HFY Bioscout vessel Whispers of Ash pulsed dimly as it hovered in the shadow of an ancient rock fragment. To the naked eye, it was invisible. Even to sensors, it barely registered, just another dormant crust. But within, minds buzzed with activity. High Seer Vakthel stood at the observation node, forearms folded across his robed chest. His translucent skin shimmered faintly under the neural glow of the biocore. He didn't blink. His species had no eyelids, but if he could, he wouldn't have dared. "There it is," he murmured, eyes narrowing. "The Terran monster." Ahead floated the UTFS Nemesis. Monolithic. Angular. Covered in defensive plating that gleamed a deep obsidian under the twin suns' glare. It didn't drift like a ship, it waited, as though it could smell a threat light years away. "You're certain this is the one?" he asked, not looking back. A hunched HFY technician, gray, younger, spined, nodded. "Yes, High Seer. The Terrans call it a dreadnought. They're first to incorporate full sentient AI integration." Vakthel let the words hang. He had studied Terran history obsessively. Their chaos. Their rise. Their atrocities. A species born in fire, surviving extinction after extinction, only to drag themselves back up, more determined each time. They'd only been space-faring for 3 centuries. And yet here they were. Building warships like gods. "I want a full neural scan," he ordered. "But High Seer," the technician hesitated. "The Concord forbids passive neurodredging. If they detect us..." "They won't," Vakthel snapped. "And if they do, they'll hesitate. They always do. That's what makes them dangerous." The technician bowed low and turned to the console. The ship hummed. Bioneural tendrils extended, invisible to traditional scans, brushing against the hull of the Nemesis like the breath of a ghost. On the Nemesis, Commander Arya Solon stood on the bridge, arms clasped behind her back, gaze fixed on the stars. 37 years old, veteran of 2 campaigns, 1 artificial lung. Her presence was quiet, precise. Measured. Legion's voice, calm, neutral, broke the silence. "Minor temporal disturbance registered at 021 Mark, Commander. Possibly tachyonic in origin." "Possibly?" she replied without turning. "It's subtle. Non-invasive. Possibly a biological scanner operating at low energy yield." Arya's eyes narrowed slightly. "Source? Unknown. Yet." She exhaled slowly. No alarms. No orders. Just that pinprick behind the skull that told her something was off. "Keep it quiet. Run a deep pass. No active response unless they escalate." "Understood." Back on Whispers of Ash, the skin deepened. Vakthel stood motionless as projections bloomed around him. Images, code, emotional data, AI schematics. The ship's logs unlocked themselves like an invitation. "They left this unencrypted?" one of his lieutenants asked, incredulous. "No," Vakthel said softly. "They wanted someone to look. This is bait." But he didn't stop it. What unfolded before them was unlike anything in the Dominion's records. Not just weapon schematics or fleet deployments, but simulations. Dozens. Hundreds. Full wargame archives, all rendered in horrifying detail. A planet reduced to ash via orbital strafe patterns. Enemy species broken psychologically before a single shot was fired. AI-run extinction drills. One file was simply titled, Scenario, No Survivors. And then, poetry. Field reports with verses. Written by human soldiers. Not for tactics, not for propaganda, just raw, bleeding reflections of loss and fear and love in the midst of annihilation. "What is this?" the young technician whispered. "Humanity," Vakthel said grimly. "A contradiction held together by grief and steel." He stared as one log played on repeat. A simulation in which the Nemesis chose to self-destruct rather than fall into enemy hands, after transmitting a virus to every friendly system, just in case it had been compromised. A species that feared its own potential so much, it built its machines to destroy themselves at the first sign of corruption. On the Nemesis, Arya moved into her private command chamber, eyes scanning the updated diagnostics. Legion's voice followed her in, projected into the walls. They're still scanning. No breaches yet. But it's deep. Purposeful. You are Yukai? Most likely. Their scans mimic old Signer biotech. Arya Saturday. They're looking for weaknesses. Yes. Instead, they're finding history. She didn't speak for a moment. Then, show them everything. Legion paused. Everything, Commander? They want to know who we are. Let them see. Aboard the Yoryukai vessel, the images kept coming, training exercises where human soldiers practiced evacuating civilians under enemy fire while simultaneously detonating fallback positions. AI logs analyzing probability matrices for acceptable civilian casualties. A cultural file surfaced titled Hiroshima. Another, Operation Ragnarok. And then, Project Wraith, partially encrypted. Enough to understand the premise: planetary erasure using AI-guided psychological warfare, misinformation, and climate destabilization. They practice this? The technician whispered, horrified. No, Bachthel said. They plan never to need it. But they couldn't take the chance. This is a cage they built for their own monster. The room fell into stunned silence. No one dared speak. On the Nemesis, Arya stood once more on the bridge, watching that same black nothing stretch endlessly beyond her view. Legion's voice was low, almost reverent. They're afraid now. Good, she said. Fear will make them hesitate. And if they don't? She glanced at the comms panel. Then we show them what happens when you open the cage. The air aboard Whispers of Ash thickened. Not literally, oxygen was precisely regulated, but the atmosphere had changed. Unease crept into the Yoryukai like smoke. Bachthel stood at the center of the biohub, surrounded by translucent data veins pulsing with Terran information. He no longer looked pleased. The lines of his face had hardened, mandibles drawn tight. They've mapped galactic threat scenarios, one analyst said, voice brittle. Simulated war outcomes against every major empire. Another spoke up, tentacles twitching. Including us. Your Yukai extinction probability, 91.6% within 6 standard days. Silence fell. No species prepares that kind of contingency unless they expect to use it, the analyst added quietly. Bachthel said nothing. His gaze was fixed on a file playing in a constant loop, a holographic war table from within the Nemesis, showing human fleet dispersal techniques. Not just tactics, psychological warfare. Feigned attacks. Delayed rescues. Propaganda injections into enemy civilian networks. At the center, a phrase translated roughly into Yoryukai tongue. To win, we must make them doubt themselves. He turned. Go deeper. Aboard the UTFS Nemesis, Arya walked silently through the corridor between the central core and the AI chamber. She moved like a soldier used to tension, eyes sharp, gait precise. Update, she said, not breaking stride. Legion's voice followed. They've breached lower archive strata. Emotional logs. Cultural drift records. They're seeing more than tactics. What's their response? Unclear. But their scan rate has slowed. She stopped. So they're hesitating. Yes. But not stopping. Arya tapped the panel beside her. The walls flickered, displaying real-time visual reconstructions of Yoryukai biosignatures embedded in the skin field. They didn't come to observe, she muttered. They came to dissect. Back on the Whispers of Ash, the skin tunnel opened a deeper chamber. Not military. Not technical. Personal. It was a log. Plaintext. No encryption. Human soldier. Male. Age 29. Call sign, Dustwalker. Date, Final hours of the Signa War. My hands don't stop shaking. Not from fear. From memory. I see the shadows of cities we burned to save them. I hear the cries in languages I'll never understand. And still, I pull the trigger. Because if I don't, they'll come back. They always come back. Attached was a poem. Short. Raw. We built fire to keep warm. Then taught it to walk. Now we pray it never learns to run. The URUkai technician stared confused. Why would a warrior keep this? One asked. Why archive emotion? Vakthel didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was low. Because humans don't separate their minds from their weapons. They fuse them. He gestured. Continue. Inside the Nemesis, Legion dimmed the bridge lighting, flickers of crimson running beneath the consoles. They've accessed soldier logs, the AI reported. Psychological data. Combat ethics protocols. Arya leaned forward in her command chair, fingers steepled. Then they're starting to understand. What exactly? That we remember what we do, she said. And we do it anyway. Legion's pause was longer than usual. There is a 78% chance they will retreat within the hour. And if they don't? Then their fear is outpaced only by their pride. She stood. Prepare a response packet. Show them what we almost used. Back aboard the Yaryukai ship, panic rippled. The deeper they probed, the less mechanical it became. One file wasn't a weapon design or tactic schematic, it was a letter. Addressed to an enemy commander, written after his surrender. We never hated you. We hated what we had to become to stop you. No embellishment. No flair. Just raw, honest pain written by someone who'd ordered the deaths of thousands. And meant it. The technician who read it dropped the file feed. We need to stop, he said. This is not military intelligence. This is confession. Another objected. But it proves they're weak. Broken. No, said Vakthel, finally turning. It proves they're aware. They grieve what they do. And yet their hands never tremble. He turned back to the main interface. Find the source of the AI. I want to see what drives this machine. In the heart of the Nemesis, Legion monitored the scan tunnel, tracking every ripple, every entry. They're coming for me now, it said aloud. Arya stepped into the AI core, lit in cool cobalt blue. The space was quiet, almost reverent. They want to know if you're just a tool, she said. I am more than that. I know. But they don't. A moment passed. You're afraid, Legion said. Arya shook her head. No. Just calculating. Then let me offer an equation. She arched a brow. If they breach my final firewall, I will expose Wraith. Entirely. Arya hesitated. That's not a bluff. No, Legion said. It's a reminder. The Uryukai's final skin broke through the last security layer. And what greeted them was not code. Not data. A message. Addressed directly to whispers of ash. No encryption. No defenses. You've looked too long. Now we look back. A second later, one of the Uryukai's cognitive conduits sparked violently. A scream echoed across the chamber as a neural operator collapsed, biotendrils convulsing. Then another. And another. Vakthel stepped back as one of the cortex hissed. Shut it down! Shut it! The interface went dark. No alarms. No warnings. Just silence. And on the screen, a single line. Project Wraith, active simulation file 3 loaded. Inside Nemesis, Arya exhaled. They triggered it. Yes, Legion confirmed. Casualties? Minimal. 3 Yaryukai minds overloaded. Temporary blindness. 1 cardiac failure. No fatalities, yet. Arya nodded. They'll remember that feeling. They'll remember us, Legion replied. She stared at the stars. Good. The glow of the Yaryukai command node dimmed to an anxious flicker. Vakthel stood motionless, the smell of burnt synapse gel lingering in the air. One technician lay twitching on the floor, eyes unfocused, drool pooling beneath his cheek. Another sat dazed, his breathing shallow, tendrils limp. Report, Bachthel growled. A junior officer, trembling, replied. The scan triggered a neural echo. It fed information back into our system. The AI must have been waiting. You're saying it knew we were coming? No, the officer said. It let us come. The bridge fell silent. No one dared meet the High Seer's eyes. Bachthel turned back to the still glowing display. On it hovered the words burned into every surviving mind aboard. Project Wraith, Simulation 3 active. Target, UR-Yukai Dominion. Survival likelihood, 0.03%. The number pulsed, red and final. Aboard the UTFS Nemesis, Arya sat alone in the comms chamber, eyes fixed on the quantum relay. The system shimmered with unread messages, none yet sent. Legion's voice broke the quiet. Your Yukai vessel remains cloaked, but passive systems show a 13% drop in their life support cycle. Likely treating neural trauma. Then they understand now. Yes. Arya leaned back. So what's the play? We could lock weapons. Pulse an EMP. Shut them down before they slink back to the Dominion. You could. Legion agreed. You should. But I won't. The AI paused. Explain. She glanced up. Fear keeps them cautious. But understanding, that keeps them distant. They've seen the cage now. Let them wonder what it takes to open it. On Whispers of Ash, a debate raged. Words clashed in harsh, clicking bursts. Science officers argued for immediate withdrawal. Tactical leaders demanded retaliation. Priests called it an omen. Bachthel said nothing. He studied the last frame received from the human vessel, a simulation of Yar-Yukai homeworlds reduced to dust, cultures disassembled, traditions mimicked and rewritten by viral memes. Not with bullets. Not with bombs. But with ideas. We cannot let them rise further. One voice hissed. We strike now or perish later. Another shook his head. Strike? Against that? They showed us what they've planned. What kind of mind prepares this and then simply lets us leave? Vachthel's claws tapped the console slowly. A mind that believes it doesn't need to fire. Arya entered the bridge. Crew members stood at attention. The silence that followed wasn't tense, it was alert. She took her seat. Status? Her XO stepped forward. Enemy ship still cloaked. Their signatures degrading. If they're smart, they'll leave soon. They're smart, Arya said. Scared, too. That helps. The XO hesitated. We really let them see all that? Wraith, the protocols, the logs? They were already afraid, she said. Now they'll be careful. And what if they weren't bluffing? What if that scan was stage 1 of a strike? Then they'd be dead, Arya replied flatly. They know that now. Bachthel moved alone through the internal sanctum of Whispers of Ash, past walls slick with organic wiring. He entered the private chamber reserved for High Seers, a space meant for clarity, meditation, resolve. He did not meditate. Instead, he activated the comms array. A message, pre-encrypted by the Terrans, pulsed at the edge of the interface. No firewalls. No locks. No threats. He opened it. We are not what you fear. But we remember what fear made us. We do not seek war. But we built ourselves to survive one. You saw the beast. You saw the cage. We keep the key. Don't come looking for it. He read it twice. Then closed the file. Arya watched the cloak signal fade. The Whispers of Ash was moving now, slow, calculated, leaving no trace of its presence behind. Legion confirmed it. They're retreating. Trajectory outbound to Yar-Yukai fringe. No pursuit, she said. Of course. Arya stood. She looked tired, but not weary. Focused. Grounded. She addressed the bridge. This was a warning. Not a strike. A reminder of what we carry. One ensign asked, voice uncertain. Did we do the right thing? She answered without pause. We didn't fire. That's right enough. Aboard Whispers of Ash, Vakthel wrote his report with a clarity he hadn't known since his youth. He detailed what they saw, what they triggered, what they barely survived. At the end, he included a single recommendation. Engagement with Terran fleets is not advised under any circumstance. If Terrans offer peace, accept. If they offer silence, be grateful. He signed it. Then, slowly, added an addendum. Do not provoke the species that fears itself more than you fear it. The UTFS Nemesis moved on, drifting through the black without sound or ceremony. It didn't need fanfare. It never had. Arya stood in the observation dome, hands folded, watching stars pass like old gods. Legion's voice came softly. They'll speak of this. She nodded. They'll speak carefully. Do you regret showing them Wraith? She paused. No. They needed to see the beast. So they'd understand why we locked it away. And what if they come back? Arya smiled, thin and tired. Then they'll see what happens when we stop holding the key.